Well, now we've gotten a pretty good look at the color definitions and also our new background colors and gradients that we can use in CSS3. Let's take a look at borders for these same objects. I'll go ahead and close the file that we were working on, and I'll go back out to my working files folder, and this time I'll open up the Try Borders HTML. Let me just reuse the same browser page we were working with before, keep things neat and tidy. And of course, I'll open this up inside my text edit application as well so we can work on it. We've been able to make stylized borders on block elements in CSS since the very first version. But in the past, we've always had to resort to images whenever we wanted something with rounded corners or a drop shadow like we saw in our last example. And just like the box shadow property, CSS3 has a way around rounded corners too. So let's take a look at using radiused corners on our border. Now if we take a look at the element that we've got set up, we've got a div with a light pink color and it's surrounded by a big thick red border. We'll take a look at the code and we can see that in addition to our basic div styles that give it the width and height, we've got a background color which is actually using the feature we just saw. That's not really a pink, that's a red filled area with a very light opacity to it, 0.2. We've got the width and height settings, and we've taken advantage of the border width, border style, and border color properties to be able to set up our border. Now we've always had a few styles we could work with. For instance, I could substitute dashed for solid, save that change, and we'll come out and see dashed line border replacing the original solid one. Or we could even use dotted. I'll refresh that page as well. And you can see that that dot pattern wraps around our div. One last popular one is a double line. And when I refresh the page with that change set into it, you can see we've got a double line border. But in each of these cases, we have an interesting problem with hard corner edges. So let's take a look at the new border radius property. I'll go back into our document and we'll go into the sample div class style that we have up here. And I'm just going to add a line at the bottom where we'll type in the new border radius property. Now, like a lot of the other new CSS3 properties, there are some prefixes that you'll want to use if you want to target some older browsers. For instance, we would actually have to use the MOZ prefix if we were working on a Firefox browser that was earlier than version 4. But since I'm doing my testing on version 13, I'll just stick with the base property for right now so we can see how it works. I'll set up the property with a value, and I'm just going to use a single value, so we'll set the radius of all corners for our first example. I'll set it at 25 pixels. We'll save our change, and let's go back and see what that looks like. Now you can see, even with the double property on for the style of the border, I can see this nice rounded corner on all four corners. Now, like I said, in previous versions of HTML, we would have had to made this an image or made just the corners an image in order to achieve the same effect. But here we're getting it with plain old CSS and HTML. The new border radius property is similar to the old border properties in that you can address individual elements. Back in our code, if I went back to border and instead said border-top width, I would only be setting it for the top portion of the border. In a similar style, we can use designators to target each individual corner and individually set its radius. So let's try that a little bit. I could go over to my border radius property and I'll change it to a border top-left radius property. Now we're only targeting one corner with our pixel dimension. I'll save my change, we'll go over and refresh the page, and there you can see only the top left corner has the radius. You can address the other corners and set different radius values, or leave them as corners just as I have here. Another way that the border radius property is similar to the other border properties is that it has a shorthand method that you can use as well. So let's go back and try that out. We already actually saw the first portion of the shorthand method. If I simply specify border radius and I give one value, that value will be used for all four corners. If I give two values, it'll be used for opposite corners. So let's try that out first. I'll set a radius of 50 pixels for the other corners. We'll save our change. We'll go back to our document and try it out. And there you can see that much bigger 50 radius is on the top right and bottom left corner. And the 25 pixel radius is used on the top left and the bottom right. Now, if you want to address all four corners individually, you simply give four values. So let me add two more on to what we have now. I'll add a much smaller one, 10 pixels for the next one, and I'll follow it with an even smaller radius of just 5 pixels for the last. Let's save our change and see what that looks like. Now we can see the 25 pixel radius, the 50 pixel radius, then we go down to 10, and 5 you can only see barely on the edge there. But we've successfully addressed each corner with a different radius using one line of CSS. Our new border radius property will work with any of the styles that we used before. For instance, I'll just change this back to solid, and we'll save our change to see what that looks like. We can see that the same radiuses are still reflected, but we're not seeing the double line now. And we can actually even remove the rest of the border settings completely. I'll take everything away here and just leave our border radius. When we save our change now and refresh the page, there we can see that the div border itself is holding to those rounded corners, even if we don't have a visible border showing.